Yeehaw, hello, and howdy. Thank you for joining us on the Canon Stats podcast, the weekly Arsenal Analytics podcast. I am Scott Willis, and always I am joined by my co-host, Adam Bogey. Welcome, Adam. You enjoying the international break so far?
Hey, Scott. No, I am not. I do not care at all about international ball. So it's been so boring.
Has there been
Um,
anything of note, like real importance that's played? I know there was some games yesterday. I did not watch a single one of them, if I'm going to be
yeah,
100% honest.
I mean, I didn't watch anything either. Everybody's doing qualifying right now. So AFCON qualifying, Euro qualifying. I think last night, our time, Messi was doing qualifying for, what do they call it in South America? CONMEBOL, sorry.
Yeah.
So yeah, everybody's just qualifying for their continental championships at this point. I don't know that. I'm trying to think. I think Poland played.
Yeah, I think, Kivior, I did see that he played as a left back, and as a pretty aggressive advanced left back too from the stuff. Again, I did not watch a single minute, just saw a heat map of the game.
Yeah, no, he's in like a solid. I'm looking at the heat map too. He's in like a solid like overlapping slash inverted kind of a
Mm-hmm.
shape. It's definitely on the front foot. So yeah, I mean, truth be told, I generally do not pay a ton of attention to international. Maybe it's like my hardwire status as an American, where typically like there's Mexico
Mm-hmm.
when you're a U.S. men's national team fan, and then it's kind of a bunch of nobodies except for when you lose to the nobodies, and then it's really embarrassing. So I'm just not a huge. I also just don't find the style of international soccer football to be quite as interesting. So
We're Americans. We say soccer.
yeah, I mean, I try to bridge the gap. I speak to the audience, which is global.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a moment where everything kind of it always happens at the worst time. Like this is my least favorite of all of the international breaks of the season. You know, the
Mhm.
other ones it's fine, whatever. Like these are kind of thing, but it's like you just got back into the swing of club football, and then they throw this one right after the transfer window closes too. So it's like you're finally
Mhm.
like, all right, our squad is settled, we're ready to go, and then nope, we're gonna take 2 weeks, and yeah, nothing. So this one always feels like the worst.
Mhm.
The one in October, I think, is probably the most fine. Like you're a little bit more ready for it, and then the one that's kind of at the end of the year, like when you're starting to like get there, that's the one that feels like it always disrupts Arsenal's season the most.
Yeah.
It's always Party comes back injured. Martin
Tierney
Odegaard,
comes back injured.
yeah, needs to have a match or two to get back into his club format, and those kinds of things. So those are kind of my rankings of the ones that I like the least. That probably be some good content. Which is the worst international break?
Which international? Yeah. Well, in season World Cup is automatic number one. That's a nightmare. But yeah, I feel like that maybe this is just like my frame of attention that I pay to this. But I always feel like we always get these breaks when things really start to like take a turn for the positive for Arsenal.
Yeah.
Obviously, the first half of last season was just so good, and then the World Cup happens, and we come back, and I think Arsenal played a couple of good games after the World Cup. Like they handled Brighton pretty easily. I think
Yeah,
West
the
Ham was
West
pretty
Ham game, yeah, right after I was at that one was one that came early goal and then came back, showed real good resilience, and made me feel very happy.
yeah. Now after all of the like heartburn that we've been getting about has it actually been a good start to the season? Is the defending good? And we go out there and yes, it was 1-1 for the majority of the game, but it was 3-1 on the final, so smacked Manchester United. And now we get another wonderful break. So just kind of throw your hands up at some point.
Yeah,
We knew
I
it
think
was
that
coming.
has taken a lot of the momentum, I think, out of how much we really enjoyed that match. Because normally, like, you got the full week of build up, and you remember it, and it feels like everybody went away, and now it kind of lost. But I guess the alternative could have been if we had lost. I don't think that there would have been any arrest to the panic or anything like that. Because when you look at what's happening with Manchester United, like not only do they have to deal with this, but now their PR stuff is going haywire with all the stuff. So they're like trashing Jadon Sancho left and right. They're doing their best to cover up stuff with Anthony, and maybe the club, maybe helped out covering up some of the medical stuff. And then they invited a pedophile to a game. So, like, they are
Yeah.
just having all sorts of bad news cycles going against them.
I mean, it would be like you said, it would be bad enough for them to have lost, and in that like in that way that they did to Arsenal, where I think that oddly, I've seen who knows who's just like engagement farming these days, but feel like I have seen a strange number of posts that are like along the lines of, no, it wasn't completely bad. Arsenal didn't dominate the game, which is just a complete joke. Manchester United Arsenal should be 50-50 if both clubs are operating
Mhm.
the way that they are supposed to, and it was not at all. It was like 70-30 at best. So yeah, they would have a lot to complain about without the extracurriculars. So do I feel bad for them? No, because I do not like Manchester United. I do not like people who do bad things. So it is what it is.
Yeah, it's a very controversial take there that you have there, Adam.
Yeah,
You don't
bad
like people
people
that
do
do
not
bad
get
things.
sympathy from me.
Yep. All right. I think there is at least something with some meat on it to talk about in the Arsenal ether and discussion. And I think it's the Aaron Ramsdale versus the David Raya discussion and decision. So there's a report out of the Daily Mail. So I mean, take that with the grain of salt that it deserves. But I think it does give us a good jumping off point into a good talking point for what we want to be able to kind of see. So the report says the Mail Sport understands Gunners head coach Mikel Arteta is giving serious consideration to giving Raya, a loan arrival from Brentford, a prolonged first team opportunity in the coming weeks. How much do you buy into this? Do you think there's a truth to this? Is it, Daily Mail doing Daily Mail type things?
Well, I mean, I think there's an element to it of water is wet, right? He is costing the club £3 million just in a loan fee this season. It sounds like basically just got to dot some I's and cross some T's to make it 30 million for him to transfer over. So I should expect that Arteta, since the moment he first trained, has been seriously considering putting him in the team. I think that it's going to be a season long discussion, because while I think there's been a lot of sort of waxing about whether Ramsdale could take a prolonged stint on the bench. But I mean, even if you just kind of look at what will happen when Arsenal return from the international break, there are multiple different kinds of competitions. There are games that are 3 days apart.
Mm-hmm.
Arteta was doing this playing Matt Turner on Europa League Thursdays last season, until things got kind of icky, and then he put Ramsdale in there. But so I mean, I should he absolutely, yeah, he should. You spent a lot of money on him. He should probably be playing, and he is good. I think he's an objectively good keeper. So better, I don't know. We're gonna find out. But when you come back to a Saturday or Sunday, whichever day the 17th is, game against Everton, and then
Yep.
you turn around on, I think it's Wednesday for PSV. I think you're just going to see one of each.
Yeah.
That's just what I would expect.
Yeah, so the upcoming schedule is so we have coming back from the international break. Arsenal play on Sunday against Everton. That one was moved late thanks to the TV guys, so it's going to throw off all of our schedules. Then we have PSV at the Emirates on Wednesday, September 20th. Then we have Tottenham on the 24th, and
Oh,
then
that's
we have Brentford in the League Cup on the 27th. And it does seem that Arsenal have gotten permission from Brentford for an on loan player to be able to play in that match. So, if you're going to go against that, or if you're betting here for the next four matches, who's playing in which ones?
I would bet. I would bet. I don't know. I think that one of them is going to play in the Champions League and the League Cup, and the other one will play in the Premier League. They've both kind of got one. Well, I think maybe the cup games are harder overall.
Mm-hmm.
Spurs might be the hardest single game, but it's also got maybe the easiest game. Goodison isn't necessarily easy. They're all okay. Maybe they're all four. Now that I talk myself through it,
You've talked yourself through all the different possibilities right now, I think.
I have. Yeah, I mean, I think smoke fire. Maybe we see Raya for Everton and Tottenham, and we see Ramsdale for the Champions League and for Brentford.
Interesting. I still kind of think that it's still Ramsdale's spot to lose. I'm not, this is maybe going against my general character of being a Ramsdale hater, but I think he's been fine. I don't think that I know there's been a lot of stuff going around with Ramsdale ranking at the bottom for post shot expected goals so
after
far
four
this
games.
season, but it's literally 4 games and 9 shots.
Yeah.
A big chunk of that is the first Fulham goal, where that's when I think that's particularly hard for post shot expected goals to handle. Like that's a massive corner case where usually when a player is shooting from that location, like yeah, the keeper is on the goal line doing that kind of thing, but like that is literally following an error, and
Mm-hmm.
that Ramsdale is not in a position that he would typically be if they were in more of a set defense to being able to go against that. So
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely a corner case that is throwing things off. And when you've only got, I think they're 1.4 or something, 1.2, is what they expected. And like of that, it was 0.06 or 0.06. So 6% to score from there. And it's like, that is a lot higher than 6%, I think, from there, given the everything else going around it. So
Mm-hmm.
as much as I'd like to bash Aaron Ramsdale, like I don't think that was his fault at all.
No.
And I still think that it's his spot to lose still, and I don't think he's done anything to lose it quite yet. I think David Raya is going to have to come in. I think he's got an opportunity, but I think it's going to be. I think he'll get the Champions League, and I think he'll get the League Cup. And if he performs from there, maybe the match after that he might to be able to step in. So I don't know if I have it written down. It's Bournemouth. I think that's on September 30th.
Yeah.
That
And
might
then
be
turn
the
around
one
and go
that
to
I think.
France
Yeah, so I
on
think
the
there's
third.
these 4 matches. Each of them are going to get 2, and I think it's I could see it either way.
No, I think that you're right. I think one way or another, we're gonna get this cluster of 6 matches where it's one weekend, one midweek. And I do expect that it's probably going to be 3-3. Just it's nice for rotation. You're going to have probably somewhat different selections in between the two sets. Brentford isn't really a game that Arsenal can punt to the kids. I think a lot of people are going to be pretty disappointed when that team sheet, when that lineup gets put out, and it's probably like Fabio Vieira and Jorginho getting some starts. Maybe like a Reece Nelson sneaks in there, but I think it's going to be pretty strong. So you're kind of looking at a stretch of like 6 games, 2 games a week, where you've got some opportunities to kind of mix and match. And I think the way the season has started, I remember tweeting like at some point, I don't know, in mid-August or something, that I want Arteta to unleash his inner tinkerer for this season. And I think he's really done that so far. And we're just going to get some very different looks from very different clubs. Like PSV is completely different to like what we're going to face against Brentford, and when we go to France and we face Lens in that Champions League match. Like that's going to be completely different to what we face the very next game, which by the way is Manchester City. So yeah, I think it's going to be 3-3, and maybe Arteta uses this as a little bit of a proving ground to see who he wants in goal for that game on the 8th.
Yeah, because I think that is the big one that's on the horizon. So everybody's going to get a few chances to impress to be able to do it. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you brought up the League Cup stuff, and I hadn't thought too much about that ahead yet about what the lineup might be. But I think you're right. I think it's going to be a pretty it's going to be rotated, I think, but not rotated in the sense of the old Arsene Wenger play the kids way. And I
No.
think that's probably good. Like you think about the benches we've put out lately, the benches have been incredibly strong.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a lot of people that haven't been able to get the game time that we want to be able to kind of see, right? Smith Rowe
Smith
hasn't been
Rowe.
able to get
Yep.
on. Trossard
Trossard.
is still not being able to get, he got the one start and he had, I think, the one sub appearance as well.
Yeah.
Or did you get the 2 sub? Oh, just the one. It was just
I
the
don't
the
think
Forest
he didn't
match,
play in
right?
the last game. Yeah.
Yep, it was just Forest and the start against Fulham is where he was able to play. Jesus is still coming back, so I think this will probably, Jesus will probably be ready for Everton. So, but that's probably Eddie, maybe getting a start to be able to keep him going. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Reece Nelson, is looking for more minutes. Jorginho, there's a lot of guys that I think that we want to have involved in our team that just haven't been able to do it. So it does make it so there's harder to fit in there. I think there's one guy that I would be really interested in, especially now that we've had a little bit of the injury concerns at the back. Is this a Rule Walters game for Brentford?
Maybe. I think it's going to depend on how we come out of Tottenham. If we're completely spent, maybe. but there are. I mean, it's Party will most likely not be back by then, so
Yeah,
you
because I
can't
think the
really.
reports are targeting. Is it after the October international break?
I believe so, which would bring him back no sooner than the 21st. Knowing the way that Arteta works and the way Arsenal works, maybe they do trot him out on the bench for the Manchester City game on the 8th, because that would be about 5 weeks after his 6 to 8 week injury. We've done it before with him to poor results, but at least he wouldn't be starting. So yeah, I mean you're gonna get probably what the same back four that just played, assuming everyone's healthy, on that Sunday, and then Thursday you're in a cup, or sorry,
Is it
Wednesday you're in
Wednesday?
a
It's
cup.
Wednesday in the cup. Yeah.
So I mean maybe I at this point I'm kind of more like on the side of never betting that Arteta will play a young kid, because he doesn't really integrate the younger guys into the squad that way. He doesn't he doesn't seem. I mean, he'd probably be on the bench. I
Okay.
would bet on him being on the bench for that game.
Yeah, I think if this is going to be one where I'm going to read a lot into it about where he is in the pecking order and all those
Mhm.
kinds of things. So I really am going to probably put a lot of stock into, if he starts, then I think he's probably the next guy up. Because otherwise, what is it? Cedric is kind of or I guess it's
He's still there.
yeah, he's still there. He could start. He could play. So would you freak out if it was Cedric ahead of Walters?
No, people will, but
Oh, absolutely. People love to freak out.
would
I
I
love a
freak
freak
out?
out.
No. I mean, it's the League Cup. I don't care. It's
You don't care about the League Cup until the semifinals, right?
yeah. I mean, that's I if we're gonna want to be like Pep and like Jurgen Klopp, like we got to treat the League Cup like them until late, and then try to win it if we're in the finals or the semifinals. But yeah, I mean, it feels like we are currently in a period as a club where we don't really have that much overlap between the youth setup and the first team, and it's not because of any sort of negligence or mistreatment of the youth players or turning Haaland into a cash cow or whatever accusation you want to put out there. I just don't. I think with the exception of Balogun and Charlie Patino, when you look at like who is pushing for a first team presence, the list is just maybe even no one at all. Like Brooke Norton Cuffey went to the championship, and I think that. I mean, I think it's very fair, maybe even a little generous, to say that the reviews on him were mixed, and that's a whole step below where he would be playing if he were with Arsenal. I don't think Lino Souza has gone out on a first team loan yet, so I don't think that there are that many guys that are that close. So Walters again hasn't done a loan either. So it's asking a lot of him to come in and maybe play against like Brian Mbuemo, or
Yeah.
Vissa or somebody like that. I don't know. It's a big ask.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much Brentford actually rotates for this match too.
Yeah.
Because they have been a very strong team thus far in the Premier League, looking quite good. They had an unlucky draw, or I guess against Tottenham to start the season, but after that they have looked really good. I know when I posted things earlier this year or earlier this week, they looked like the third best team on after 4 matches. So take that again with the grain of salt and doing that kind of thing. But a very very good team, and it'll make a tricky matchup. So it'll be interesting to see for both teams how they rotate and do things kind of in this match.
Yeah, I was just looking at how Thomas Frank approached the EFL Cup last season. They only played 2 games. They lost to Gillingham on a shootout, but I think that would have been fourth round. But he went pretty weak in their first game. But again, this is against. I even lost who it was against, but it was against a lower. It was Colchester. So I think there's arguably maybe one or two regular starters in this lineup. Janelt in the midfield. So I think he's probably going to rotate a good amount, just like Arteta will. It might be a little bit more of like a battle of the benches
Mm-hmm.
than a battle of the kids. But I mean, am I gonna like open the Twitter app an hour before that game and be surprised when I see like Mbuemo and like all the other regulars? No, I'm not, because he's playing a big side and he probably does want to win. So
Yeah. All right. So we do have an official transfer out that we haven't had a chance to talk about, and that's Nicolas Pepe. So his Arsenal
Yeah,
career comes to an end, and he leaves for Turkey. Reportedly, what is it, £3 million? I'm a little bit surprised by that. I'd like to know more details about what that actually means, but
yeah. I think
yeah,
that's a lie. Uh,
it just yeah, it
I've
doesn't pass the smell test.
no, well, I don't think I'm not accusing anyone of lying. I'm more accusing someone of making something up for engagement online. I think that I've seen like a little bit more credible people describe it as a free transfer. So I think that it probably was a buyout. That's what I was expecting
Like,
from
right,
the
maybe
start.
there's a a £3 million like discount that he took, with like them covering that part of his last year wages or something like that. Like, I could
Something
see
like that.
that
Yeah.
as more plausible.
Which I think by the spirit of it, maybe it comes off as 3 million saved, but it's not a transfer fee that is compensation to break your contract with the player. It's the player agreeing basically to take 3 million less from the money that you already owe him. So yeah, I mean it's he goes to Trabzonspor. They're like
Yeah, see,
they're kind of
you
like
notice how I did not try to say that name. I was very very
I'm
careful,
probably mispronouncing it as well. So
but you're braver
it's
than I am.
he's I would put that club in like the second tier of Turkey, not to say that they're not in the Turkish Super League, but like that is another league where it's like it's Galatasaray, it's Fenerbahce, Besiktas up at the top, and then it's kind of a couple other clubs that aren't terrible, and they're in like that not terrible tier. I think right now they're a couple points out of first, but that's after just a little bit of time in the league. So that's it's kind of like their attempt to keep up with like the Zaha and the Moro Icardi signings that their rivals made, and it's probably going to go how you would expect. But we bid you adieu, Nicholas Pepe. Good night, sweet prince. Thank you for the memories. Let's move on.
Yeah, so looking back, I don't know. So I think, at least from my perspective, I think this is one where I probably made the biggest mistake so far that I've had in player evaluation, of really kind of letting the excitement of, because I think, where Arsenal were at that time, it felt like we were in, real the doldrums of everything. And I think in hindsight, I really let that color my analysis of
Mhm.
the move, because I went like, oh, I was excited, I thought so, but I really overlooked, I think, some of the red flags now with hindsight. I don't know, where do you think this move lands? Is this just a bad fit for the team? Was it something that we should have seen in the player? It was a, kind of a miss by the recruitment team for bringing them in.
Yeah, I think it's all of the above. I mean, stylistically, Arsenal were kind of in a transition, right, from Wenger to Unai Emery. Those two managers do not play a similar style, and then you get Arteta coming in, who couldn't be any more different than Emery, who allegedly didn't even want Pepe in the first place. He wanted Zaha, right? So it's a little bit of a jumble there. I think fairly or unfairly, you get a huge burden placed on him for being just the club record signing. It's going to happen if you're at this size of a club. But yeah, I mean, was there some kind of miss with Arsenal? I think so. I
Mm-hmm.
think even if you compare him to kind of some of the deals of the time, I think he's something of an outlier. Lille, of course, have had some clouds, let's say, swirling over some of their other dealings from around the same time. There have been things said about who was running Arsenal at that point, so it seems like there's a little bit of a smell to the whole transfer in the first place. But we'll just stick to the football and the stats here. I think what he did in Lille definitely would be enough to catch the attention of anyone who was even remotely watching. But again, yeah, were there red flags? Absolutely. I mean, we look at his big breakout season where he had 22 and 11. 13 of his 22 goals were from open play. That's 9 penalties. That's a lot of penalties.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
13 goals is good, but it's not elite
No.
It's in
And
that very
22
good
looks
range.
elite.
Yeah.
22 looks elite when you are a wing, a wide forward. So 11 assists looks elite when you're a wide forward as well. And there's not anything there with like overperforming XA or anything that's too scary at 9.6 XA. But the thing with Pepe, other than he had huge turnover numbers in France, which is a big red flag for me, and
Mhm.
not just like, oh, this guy's really direct and he has a lot of turnovers, but like this guy has a lot of turnovers at a level of competition where he shouldn't. But the thing that I would have probably noted if I were on Twitter at the time was just there's just like a huge spike in the underlyings that one season. His XG more than doubled, which is I would put that squarely in go prove it now and then I'll sign you territory. His XA more than doubled in that breakout season. So are there guys who do that and it's because something developed, some flick switched? Yes, but I never bet on a flick switch or switch flicking. And this is just the new them now. I'm very much a regress expector. So I think they missed a lot and just playing a completely different style and a different league with so much more space. There's just a lot that I think they should have thought of more.
Yeah, and I think this is one where kind of going back to some of the video, and then kind of being able to see in hindsight. One of the things that always frustrated me at Arsenal was that he could get past a player, but then he would slow the game down so much that he'd have to get past that player again.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that again, you probably should have caught that more in the video when I was watching, doing that. And then I think there's the some of the shot profile that still just very couldn't get central enough. I think sometimes with when he was cutting in, and I think that was something that certainly dogged him when he got into
Mhm.
Arsenal, where he didn't have the Saka ability to start at the corner of the box and then move it towards the D. He started at that corner and was only able to like move it in like a little bit, and that's just a relatively easy shot to see coming. And especially when you've only got one leg, everybody knows where you're doing it, and he's not Robin where he's got a special ability to just get past somebody even when everybody knows it's coming.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. You never with Bukayo out on the right wing, you feel like there's a pretty good chance this ends in a left-footed shot, right? But you also have a belief in the possibility that he is going to make any man who's trying to mark him one-on-one get out of his way. And whether he's going to do that by dribbling past them, body feint and go the other way, whether he just does that with like being a better athlete or whether he does that with his strength, you know that you have options. He also, with Odegaard, he really brings like the ability to play a 1-2. Whereas I think that Pepe, you get him the ball in the same position, you expect him to take like a couple of little light touches with his left, kind of like maybe think about it a little bit, and then he'll try his move. And it's like at that point, like the entire defense is back, they're all set. Your teammates have stopped moving. Like you just,
Right?
it
Yeah,
was
they,
like,
they, they may if they made a run, they're offside now, so you
yeah,
can't you can't make that pass anymore.
they're offside, and yeah, the attack is effectively over. We're looking for someone
That
to,
guy that you beat previously is now back and double teaming you.
what's the opposite of a catalyst? That's what he was. He was the opposite of a catalyst to the attack, and
He was a neutralizer.
he was very much an attack neutralizer. And I mean, I know that we have the one season where he scored 10 goals, but I've always been very much like, when did he score those goals? Because five of them were in 3 games where Arsenal's position was already set in the league. 5 over 3 when you have 10 for the season. I mean, that's something to flag too. So yeah, it's just, I know that there are random people out there who feel like he should have been worth like 10 million pounds or 15 million pounds or something, but no, he's not. He wasn't good in France. He was basically the same Pepe that got benched in terms of
Yeah, because
like,
that was 2 years, or but in France the last time, and it's like neither of those performances were good. I would say they bordered on bad overall, like the last couple of years, like where he was like at best average,
yeah,
and just did not look like a shadow of him former self.
Yeah, and before there was like the success that Arsenal are having now, people were saying that's Arteta's fault. He's not setting him up to succeed and all that jazz. But I think it's just kind of a player kind of buckling under the weight of his surroundings,
Hmm.
losing his job to a much brighter, much better, much happier, more expressive and creative player. So it's just I don't know. Now we write a new chapter. Pound for pound, probably the worst transfer Arsenal have ever made.
Yep. Well, let's move on to a happier news. So we have three Arsenal players that are nominated for Ballons d'Or. So Aaron Ramsdale is up for the goalkeeper award.
Mm-hmm.
You surprised by that one at all?
I mean, it's one of those things where I think that the discourse that surrounds him internally and the banter that we get about him isn't quite in line with like the global reputation.
Hmm.
I think that the I think that sometimes we lose sight of the fact that we're basically evaluating like, is this a keeper who can be one of the top two or three keepers in the Premier League? And the guys in that group, although it's ironic, right? Because Allison didn't get nominated for this
Well, yeah,
award.
that's probably the biggest snub that I saw on here.
Yes, I would agree. But those guys are pretty much always going to be nominated for this award. So, I think we have to acknowledge that, he's probably like, regardless of shot stopping metrics, he's probably somewhere in like the top 5 or 6 keepers in the league. If you're
And then
just
just
looking
by
at like,
default, that makes him at least top 10 in Europe, right? Like, because I think there's
probably, I
a pretty
mean,
good
yeah,
chance about that.
whoever's keeping goal for like PSG, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, and
Maybe a handful of the
Barcelona,
maybe
those guys are
one
going
or
to get
two
it.
of the Italian clubs. So yeah, I know Onana also got the nomination from his time at Inter.
He did, yeah. And there's like, and you'll get guys like Mike Maignan at AC Milan who are just very good. But yeah, no, I think it just kind of shows that people are impressed by him. Maybe he hasn't been at his best to start the season, but he had some really outstanding performances last year, even when kind of the tide started to turn. I thought keeping Liverpool to 2 was super like a heroic achievement on his part.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of like the story with him is he's got that kind of like howler gene, but he's also got like the I'm going to put the team on my back gene too. So it just kind of makes for some volatility. But yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely weird home and away splits. Like
yeah,
there's something about the focus that he's able to call upon when
yeah,
he's away and he's got the hostile crowd keeping him on there because that's the other thing too. It's like the home and away splits for the clean sheets, the home and away for just his savings. Like it's still probably weird because the samples are small and like weird stuff happens and those kinds of things. But I don't know, it's a fun story to kind of create a narrative around.
yeah. I mean, he definitely loves to be hated. I think he really gets motivated by that. So yeah, I mean, you know, I hope that whatever goes down here with Raya and everything, that never comes back, where he's the away keeper at the Emirates and he's doing that business
Oh,
to
absolutely.
Arsenal. But yeah, I mean, I was really psyched for him. I think that he could have used something like that, because I feel like he's kind of started you get that chart going around, and people tend to kind of default to blame the keeper when more goals are allowed than you should. But
Mhm.
sometimes the keeper just gets completely hung out to dry. Like, what are you going to do?
Yeah, like it's a goal is almost never one person's fault. You can think back to the Manchester United their goal that they actually did score, right? And you kind of think through like, all right, the play starts with Declan Rice probably over pressing, so maybe he gets a share of blame. Havertz makes a poor decision, I think, with his pass, and then he also like the ball bounces weird for him, so he can't do it. Maybe Odegaard should see that happening and close that space a little bit more. And then, Odegaard being flat footed there isn't able to get a foul on Ericsson as Ericsson runs through the midfield that Declan Rice abandoned. I think Ericsson makes a beautiful pass into Rashford. Maybe White, if he's got, anticipating that maybe he should be able to cut that out. I think that's a little bit harsh. But then White and Saliba get there together, and it feels like neither of them are able to corral Rashford right. I think there's a good part for Rashford in there too, where like his absolute like hesitation there forces White to go deeper than what I think he wants to be able to do, opening up
Mhm.
that cut onto the right foot. And then, then Ramsdale, like I think his positioning is maybe just slightly off. If like, ideally maybe he's one more half step to his left and he's able to get further. But it's like I just went through there and it's like that's half the team that you could
Yeah.
probably apportion some of the blame to. And I think that's basically how it can be on almost any goal a team gives up.
Mhm.
It's never any one person's fault. There's moments where everybody could have done something different to stop it, and like that's just the game.
Yeah. I mean, I just an example that springs right to mind. It's an iconic goal conceded from last season for Arsenal. It's the goal to it's the equalizer against Liverpool at Anfield. Bobby Firmino's header at the back post.
Mm-hmm.
Ask the majority of people who watched that game whose fault that was, and you will get a pretty uniform answer that it was Zinchenko. Why? Because Trent
Nutmegged him.
nutmegged him. But if you watch that play, Ben White does not mark Firmino running to the back post, and he completely misses a chance to make a clearance there. I mean, there are two people. It takes two to tango to give up that goal, because if White had played that correctly, there's a chance that that's just a cross that gets cleared. So, like, I agree with you. It's just it's kind of why you have to be a little crazy, I think, as a keeper, because you're going to get blamed for everything, and you kind of have to be a little bit of a weirdo, a little bit of a jerk, I think. But
Yeah,
yeah,
that certainly have a screw loose or something like that there. All right. So Martin Odegaard and Bukayo Saka are up for the big award. So they're on the 30 player short list. I think that absolutely those guys are deserving to be in the conversation.
yeah,
Yeah. I don't think either of them are going to win, but I think it's
no,
a great spot for them to be nominated with.
yeah. I don't know if it'll be the last time, but this is definitely Messi's award. Prepare yourself for a lot of moaning from like the northern part of England, but the reality is Erling Haaland, I think, was not the reason why they won any of what they did. If you had to like give it to a Manchester City player, I would say he would be my third choice. So yeah, I mean, you definitely are going to get some complaining though, because he scored a boatload of goals. People are going to say, well, that's what the award is, and I don't agree, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be Messi. It's probably going to be Holland in second. I'm not really sure who's going to be third, but Bukayo and Martin are probably not going to be terribly high in the voting. I did look it up, and it's Arsenal's first even nomination since Alexis Sanchez 2015.
Interesting. Yeah.
So that should say a lot about where we've been as a fan base. Even some like randoms like Dries Mertens have been nominated in that time. So it's good to get somebody in the discussion again. And whether there should have been more or not. Maybe there's a shout for Saliba. It's not necessarily something that I'm upset about, but
Yeah,
I mean,
it's interesting. Saliba didn't get. Did he not qualify for the under 21 award? Was he just
I think you'd have to
slightly too old?
literally be under 21.
Okay, not like the under 23 World Cup where if you start at a certain age, you're good. Yeah, but
Yeah,
I was looking here at the nomination list, and like from Manchester City, like the player that I think I would pick as the most important for that team didn't get the nomination, because I think I would have picked Rodri as the guy that was
yeah,
probably the biggest factor for them for being able to do it, right? So they ended up with De Bruyne, Silva. They also had, obviously Holland, Bernardo Silva, and Rodri did get nomination. I just had him further down in my
okay,
list here. It's hard to look at 30 names and
right, yeah,
quickly grab one here. But yeah, lots of Manchester City guys here as well.
which
So,
makes sense. I mean, you trouble winners and everything.
oh
I
yeah,
think
Julian Alvarez also got on the list too, but I think that's for the Argentina World Cup more than the City
yes,
treble.
I agree. I think being decent for the city treble helped him, but largely a World Cup accomplishment, and maybe I'm not even sure what time frame they're considering, but maybe even some of the stuff he
Isn't
did
it
for
isn't it
Argentina.
a calendar year award,
I don't know
right?
when it starts and ends though.
Yeah,
Is it just the 2022 year?
I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe it is because if they're counting the treble, then that would be a 23. I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be
This is
next year.
an interesting thing that we should have known about, but yeah.
Show prep.
You know what? We'll take some. nominations here of we didn't know because Arsenal haven't had a player worth discussing in it in a long time. So
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like when Arsenal posted how the Champions League format works
yeah,
month or so ago. It's like, well, we don't know. Yeah, no, I was really psyched by it. I just like basically like you said, I mean, it was the truth. Like I haven't been paying attention to those nominations in a while because there's been nothing to really look for except for maybe Saka being up for the golden, like the U21 award or like the golden boy or stuff like that.
hmm
So it's just it's very cool, particularly when we spend so much time and effort like kind of bigging up these like younger players to see somebody like Saka and also Odegaard too because he's come a long way since joining, to see them like take that step and become like that actual like this guy walks into 99% of starting lineups in the world. That's been very cool for me. I think that's been kind of the 2022 story for Saka, being the now two-time England player of the year on a team where you've got Harry Kane and you've got Marcus Rashford and you've got like actual big stars and he's winning it ahead of them. It feels like a big kind of a pivotal moment in his career.
absolutely.
So I'm thrilled by him. I think he'll probably come higher in the voting than Odegaard, even though
hmm
Odegaard had a crazy good season. So it's gonna be fun to see where he ends up, and inevitably we'll get a lot of complaints about that too.
Yeah, I hope both of them get in that top 15 type range and be able
Yeah,
to kind of see it. So yeah, I think they both are not winner or at least in the running for winning it, but hopefully they have a good showing overall for them, and it's a great thing to be nominated for. All
yeah,
right,
and it's
let's
it's a bunch
go
of
into
French people voting on
exactly
it.
the French. Yeah, is it there's media and players that vote on it too. So
I
yeah,
think so.
they
Yeah,
don't know anything.
no, it's rigged.
Yeah. All right, let's go into the housekeeping before we finish things up. The show is supported by our much appreciated premium subscribers. This month, if you've been with us, you'll have seen Adam's very good players to watch around Europe series. He's been giving you anywhere from like 5 to 9 players from each league to keep an eye on this year. I think you've been doing really good at kind of keeping them kind of like under the radar. So the guys that you maybe haven't heard about. So it's some really good names to be able to do it. You'll also get all of the post match coverage that I've been doing. I started a new thing where I've been posting my actual notes that I take during the match.
Mhm.
That's been something that people thought is interesting and worth doing, and I'm already doing it anyway. So I'm glad to publish it as long as people like to see them. So all sorts of good stuff. You get our gratitude as well. So yeah, if you're doing that, consider signing up for it. Liking, subscribing to the podcast is always good. All right. So the last thing that I had on my list, and I thought this was really interesting, is that PGMOL started to release some of their audio from the contentious decisions that they made. They only did a
Mhm.
select grouping of them, and I think it was an interesting grouping of them. But one of them is Arsenal related, and it's the penalty that was for it was called back against Kai Havertz.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a interesting one. So, what do you think about PGML doing these kind of releases?
I mean, I think it's important, right? Because there's a really big there's a really big perception issue around that organization. Particular, I mean, it's every few weeks you get another commentary about how everybody's from the Manchester area, who are the referees and all this good stuff. So I think that if they're going to combat that, you really do need to be more transparent. I've said kind of half joking, but now I kind of think it's actually completely serious. Like that, we've seen other leagues just mic up refs and allow that in real time to be audible, so you can hear what's going on. I think different people kind of had varying degrees of outrage when they listen to the audio. There's definitely an element there of like I can't remember who the VAR is,
It's
but
Jared Gillett was
Jared
the
Gillett.
yep.
So he's there. There are elements there of him kind of guiding Anthony Taylor's decision, telling him what he's going to see when he goes to look at the screen.
Which, to be
And
fair, Anthony Taylor asked, "What am I going to see when I go to the screen?"
he did, and Gillett kind of also takes it a step further and says you're going to see that there's no contact, So it kind of makes the decision for him. And when you watch it in real time on their recording, Taylor watches the replay once.
Yeah.
You and I are both, fans to varying degrees of the National Football League here in America. And I mean, those guys spend so long on the monitors sometimes. They watch it back from angles and they determine where the ball should be and how much time should be on the clock. And it just feels like it takes a lot longer than watching one replay. So
Hmm.
you can kind of get into a replay hole though when you watch it too many times and you're like
Yeah.
overanalyzing it. So I think that, the thing that bothered me about the clip is I agreed with, I can't remember who posted it, but I saw and agreed with the point that it's not, what we saw in that video is not in keeping with kind of the written or spirit kind of implied purpose of VAR, which is to correct mistakes that are obvious.
Clear and obvious.
Yes. So I think in that case you have, as to me is illustrated by Arsenal fans varying reactions to the play itself. I saw it in real time, thought it was a penalty. Then I saw the first replay, and I literally tweeted, "It will not surprise me if this gets taken back. It doesn't look that bad." And then you've got other people who are like saying, things along the lines of like, Wan-Bissaka clatters into him, Casemiro rolls over him. So it to me, the point I guess I'm trying to make is that one didn't feel super obvious, and I think that the way you call it on the field, that one should have stood.
Yeah.
So hearing Gillette basically say like, you're going to go see this and you're going to see there's no contact, and they completely don't even talk about Casemiro's role in the whole play. Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating.
Yeah, so it was really interesting from my perspective, I thought it's a penalty. And I think there was an interesting thing from Dale Johnson, who for ESPN kind of does their VAR review. He did a
Mhm.
Twitter poll, which is, as everybody knows, the most scientific of all polling. So
Absolutely.
his first question was, did you think it was a penalty? And it was about 25 to 75 in the favor of they didn't think it was a penalty. And then there was the second question, which is, do you think it should have been overturned? And was it a clear and obvious error? And that one came out 50-50, which I think really kind of matches what we're saying here. It's like, it was probably soft, but I don't think it was a clear and obvious error, where I think most people would have thought that even though they didn't think it was a penalty, that it should have been overturned by that, which I think is really kind of interesting. But, listening to the VAR audio, so they ask Anthony Taylor what they see, and Anthony Taylor says that he saw Wan-Bissaka trip him with his first step across. And so from that perspective, that is where they're saying it's a clear and obvious error, because there wasn't actually any contact on that first step.
Right.
But to me, like, once you've already kind of looked at the video there, it's like, well, maybe he didn't see that, but it's like, is it still a penalty with the other contact that's there? I thought
Yeah.
it was a little bit disingenuous to say that Havertz moved his leg into Wan-Bissaka. It's like, to me, like, I don't know, that's him making his run, being able to do it, and then I think Wan-Bissaka is impeding him trying to make that run. Like, we all go back to the David Luiz, his knee brushes the cleats of the
Like
Wolves guy,
Len's
and he
Mike,
falls
yeah,
down. And not only does he get a penalty, but he gets a red card too. Like,
because it was
that
last man,
is,
right?
so it's like, we've seen these kinds of very, very soft. You touch a player as he's running through, and that is often enough to make, when you're moving at that speed. It doesn't take a lot to knock you off your balance to be able to do it, and it happens not just once but twice, right? So he gets his back of his heel hit by Wan-Bissaka, and then Casemiro, who tries to pull out of it but does still make contact with him after he's already off balance. Like, to me, it's a foul, and it's weird that that's not put into any consideration after
Yeah.
they've done that. And I think that's the part that's more frustrating for me.
Well, and we've seen, as you alluded, we've seen these almost identical situations called the complete opposite way using VAR. When you're talking about what Casemiro did, I'm just reminded of West Ham last season where Gabriel was completely pulling out, barely nudges Paqueta, who's already falling, and
That's true.
and that was called a penalty. So, I mean, here's the thing about like the player, the attacker creating contact is there are ways, or there are benefits of creating contact other than to go down and draw a foul. I mean, you can screen the ball from the defender, creating contact. You can prevent them from getting you off the ball. So, we see Saka do that in the penalty area all the time. And sometimes he just needs to fall down, but he's too strong to do it like that. So yeah, I think it reminds me a lot of, the handball penalty or the handball rule is in the same family. Like,
Hmm.
what's a catch in the NFL? It's almost impossible to define these days. And it's like, at some point, I think you almost need to do like just rip the whole thing up and start over again, because you've kind of like governed and regulated and bureaucratized this whole process to the point where now we're doing exactly what you're saying, where what the referee says, I saw his first step across Havertz make contact and trip the player. So that's exactly what they're going to review. They're not going to review the play holistically and get to the actual correct outcome. They're just going to look at that one minute aspect of it. And that's the defense after the fact is, we had to review that. And that was a clear and obvious error because
Yeah.
there wasn't but okay, but what about the play? So
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Because he doesn't get to watch it at the slow motion in real life. Right. Like that's tough. And it's like you kind of see that and it's like, yeah, it's hard to be a referee and to be absolutely perfect in doing those kinds of things.
I've been a referee and I've made mistakes that I knew were mistakes right when I blew the whistle. So it's a terrible job and everybody's mad at you all the time,
Yeah,
regardless
right.
of
You
whether
don't
you
you
do
don't ever
well.
get credit for when you make the good calls or doing those kinds of things. It's only when you're after the fact you've made a mistake. And I think it's also right, like going back to like the poll of did you think this is a foul or not? Like there's always going to be like a continuum of like do you think that this is a penalty? Is this a foul? It goes into the weird. I think outside of the pitch or like outside of the box, this is a foul every time, right? Like absolutely, but we have this weird special rule inside of the 18-yard box because the penalty of being called a foul here is so high. So like they raise the bar and it's very weird and I think it throws off our natural inclination of what's a foul because in 80% of the pitch it's completely different and then this one tiny section we have completely different rules. It's the same thing like when there's a corner kick. Like
Yeah.
on a corner kick you're allowed to freaking wrestle anybody and do anything. Any other time during the match, like that's not allowed, and it's
Yeah.
always bizarre how we have these different situations call for different rules.
Or even just continuing down that very unhappy rabbit hole, even just like different game states or a player making one foul when they have no bookings against them and making the same foul when they have a yellow card, and how the referee will not give the second yellow, even though it screams for a yellow. They're like, you know what? We're in the 31st minute of this game. I'm not going to change it completely by sending this guy off. Like, no, that he broke the rule. Send him off. That's how it should be.
Yeah, that goes back to like, well, maybe we should have something different there. Like, if you're so concerned about ruining the game where it doesn't match, like, yeah, like it's a, yeah, there's some certain things I think we could tweak there. But I think my overall, like, I'm very happy that PGMOL is trying to be more transparent, even if we don't always agree with how they're doing some of these decisions. I am glad
Mhm.
that we are getting this information and understanding more the thought process behind the decisions that they're going to come to.
It's like it's a step in the right direction when we need like a handful of steps. So let's keep moving forward would be my takeaway from that. Because it's, we're not there yet, but that doesn't mean one step isn't good. So just
Yep.
let's just take more.
Yep. Absolutely. I think that's pretty good for an international break. Getting some good discussion in there. I did see that we had one question here when I asked out here. This is from Larry Verth. So it said Trossard should be our starting left center midfielder until January.
It's not a
Yes or no?
question.
I know it's a statement, so I'm adding a yes or no to the end of it.
My answer would be no. I don't think that I think he did a good job playing that in the preseason. The question, the way it's framed, he should be the starting until January. I guess I just don't see why. When Thomas Partey returns, I would rather play him deep and move Rice up than do that. But I think that realistically, it would probably be wishful thinking if you are kind of an anti-Havertz person to expect Arteta to change that anytime soon. I think that Arteta is very much measuring his success at that left eight spot in a very different way than the typical fan is.
Hmm.
I think that Arteta would not actually have too much negative to say about what Havertz has done at all,
Yeah, except for he just hasn't put the ball in the net. Like that's been
except
like
for
everything
missing
is he
his
wants to put the
chances.
ball in the net, and I think as soon as he starts doing that, Arteta will be very happy.
He will, and here's the so this like reminds me a little bit of the discourse about Eddie Nketiah, particularly when he was going through that really rough patch where he just couldn't buy a goal
Hmm.
last season. It's and this is why things like XG exist, because we're looking at predictability and replicability of chances. And when you have a player who consistently can get themselves in a position where, statistically speaking, like according to probability, they have a very good chance of being able to score a goal, and that's like their skill set is getting there. That is not a super common skill set, and I think that's something that Kai Havertz has in spades. I think Arteta really values that, and I think Arteta would probably tell you that if he keeps playing that same way and getting these same chances, like he's going to have some goals.
Hmm.
And by the way, the other thing that's out of his control is Kai Havertz should have an assist by now. It's not his fault he doesn't have an assist. He's second on the team in key passes and XA among starters. So to the Trossard issue, though, I think that if anyone were to take that spot away from Kai Havertz, it would probably be Fabio Vieira,
Yeah, I think
just
that's a
because he's
interesting
had
one.
a couple of very, very good cameos in that spot.
Yeah, and I think we're getting to the part of the schedule where we're going to be playing twice a week, and I think we are going to be able to see more of these players to get their chances. So we'll have Champions League games, which I think we'll see less rotation than we will against the Carabao Cup, where I think we are going to see a lot of these guys that were on that second team step up.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Trossard's going to start getting minutes. I think Vieira is going to start getting some chances here with the Champions League coming up, and yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see all of these guys fighting for these spots and being able to do
Yeah.
it. But overall, I think Havertz has been good. I think the one thing that I've actually been really surprised about and that I've been very, very happy is the defensive output. I
Mm-hmm.
know that was one of the things that people were really worried. Is like, oh, can he do those kinds of things that Xhaka was able to do? And I think he's been a resounding yes so far for what he's been able to do.
Yeah.
His moments in front of the goal have not carried over into his defensive output, which I think is something that's good for him to be able to kind of see, like still being able to affect the game, being able
Mm-hmm.
to do things. People point to like the off the ball stuff and doing that, and I think that's absolutely something that he's been able to do good. So yeah, making good runs, getting in good positions. It's been fine
Yeah.
to I think good overall. A couple of frustrating moments that have stuck out.
Yeah, I mean, and if he just doesn't whiff on that shot against United, I would probably think a lot of people would feel a little bit differently. He's got a little bit of what I referred to as like the gangly doofus factor working against him, where his body is just kind of awkward, and that is off-putting for people
Yeah.
because he does, he's not like built like very. I don't know what word I'm trying to look for. Like it's kind of an unnatural build, an unnatural physique, probably because of his height.
Yeah, tall players just look like giraffes, right? Like that's just kind of
Yeah,
like the thing it is. Like
unless they're
it's
built
never
like
right.
Skamaka or something, where they're also like muscular. But
Or Erling Holland.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Although he can look awkward at time too, right? Like when
he
you think about
does.
some of his receptions, like he doesn't always get them clean. Like he just, you forget about it because he scores, buckets of
Right,
goals.
yeah. At that point, he's got 3 goals already. Yeah, no, I think one just like pro tip I would say is go back and watch some clips. Watch on the left half of the pitch, Arsenal's left half of the pitch, especially in attacking areas. If somebody else loses the ball, watch who puts the most pressure on the sorry,
Opposition, yeah.
the opposing player who does have the ball or receives the first pass. Like you're gonna see Big Red in 29, like he gets right in there and mixes it up like right away. I've been very impressed by that, because I think that one thing about Xhaka is while he is very like stout and strong and able to outmuscle players, he would not be very quick in that
Hmm.
situation. And I think Havertz is a big upgrade in that sense. He can come back to the ball, find it really quickly, and he's actually got more recoveries than Xhaka had last season. So it's been encouraging, and I think that you have to, like, when you're somebody like Arteta, you just preach that repetition. Keep doing that. Keep making those runs. Keep being there when the shot is taken. A rebound is going to fall to you, and you're going to nail it, and it's going to go in. Something, good things will come when you put in those kind of like inputs.
Yep, just needs one to go in like off his butt that he has no idea about, and he
Yeah,
can't screw up with his confidence. And then, yeah, hopefully he'll be rolling again.
like he needs like a Haji Wright at the U.S. World Cup goal.
Exactly. All right. I think that's a good spot to end it. If you enjoyed the episode and you'd like to support the podcast, subscribe, give us a good rating. Reviews are always good. Stay up with all the stuff that we do. You can find us on all of the social medias at Canon Stats. You can follow Adam on Twitter. We're never calling it X here. It's always going to be Twitter. Always in our hearts at Adam Bogey. So thank you, Adam. It was good to talk to you.
Yeah, good to talk to you, Scott. And before we go, we should mention that we'll be on the
Oh
Gooners
yeah,
versus
Gooners versus
Cancer
Cancer.
Classic podathon here Sunday night. It's 11 p.m. my time, 9 your time. I think it's 5
5
a.m.
a.m. 5 a.m.
in the
UK time.
UK. So check that out. Give some money to that cause. It's always a really good one, and we're excited to be part of it. So
Yeah, that's a good plug there. Yeah, so thanks for listening, guys, and we'll talk to you on the next one. Cheers, y'all.